Hello. I would like to tell you a story today. Back in 1967, a new TV show, Dragnet, used this opening. The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Well, my stories are true also, and since I'm not innocent, I'm not going to name any names either. This story is about growing up and learning what life is about and what I wanted it to be. I was faced with a choice. I went through a rebellious stage during my 14th and to 16th years. Actually, to the very day I turned 16. Here is how some of it started. I have to go back a few years. My family moved to a new city when I was 10, and I met two people that influenced me a lot. The first one was a boy named Clark. He was 3 years older than me, but he preferred to hang out with younger kids, for reasons I didn't understand back then. Clark lived with his mother and older brother in what we call a mini house today. He spent more time at our house than he did at home, or at least it seemed that way. Clark introduced me to the world of sex, and that's all I'll say about that. He taught me, or us, to steal. We lived on a corner lot. Each year, at harvest time, trucks stacked high with pea vines turned our corner on the way to the market. Clark showed us how to run out and grab vines off the truck while it was going slower. One year, he even jumped on top and was throwing them off as the truck went down the street. The fresh peas were delicious, but it was still theft. He convinced us that they didn't care if we did it, but now I think that was a lie. He also taught me to steal watermelons and stuff out of the farmer's field at night. He was not a good influence on me, but I wasn't old enough to understand that then. Clark ended up being charged with several crimes, including murder, and served time in prison. He died in 2003. I was able to walk to school for 5th and 6th grades. When I graduated to 7th grade in junior high, I had to ride a bus. Our bus stop was almost the last one, and the bus was always full, and seats hard to find. I was terrified of the older boys in the back who wouldn't let me sit there. From almost the first day on the bus, I was bullied by one particular boy who made it his goal to get me crying before I left the bus. I recall telling my mother in tears that I didn't want to ride the bus anymore. After months of it, I got mad, and one day when he turned around after bullying me, I jumped on his back and started pounding on him. I actually made him cry, and that solved the problem. But somehow it led to becoming friends. Eventually, we did everything together we could. What we did the most was get into a lot of trouble. He lived with his mother, and she was totally incapable of controlling him. A juvenile court probation officer actually ordered us not to associate, because when we did, we got into trouble. Alone? Not so much. Mostly it was theft of gas and stuff like that, sneaking our cars out after dark and disobeying our parents. The worst thing we did was to set some car tires on fire and block the exit from a church parking lot. The town repair guy was really mad because it damaged the road. And I would caution anyone who tried this now. Cops and courts don't have the same patience and sense of humor that they did back then. One of my bishops once predicted that my friend would go on a mission and I would go to prison. I'm glad he was wrong about both of us. My parents were doing stuff to try and get me straightened out also. I have a video planned about being sent to a dairy farm one summer and to a beaver ranch another summer. During March of my 15th year, my friend got put into the juvenile detention center. This was after I had already been there for a week, so I knew the facility's layout. If you want to see that video, it's called 1949 Plymouth Part 2. I snuck up to his room's window late one night to cheer him up. He was miserable and asked me to break him out. He said we could run away to California and live with his father. That sounded good to me. I was ready for anything at that point of my life. I acquired some tin snips and cut the heavy security screen on his window. We cruised around town for a few hours, bragging to everyone about what we had done. We finally got tired in the early morning hours and decided to just go home and face the music the next day. He had me drop him off at the police station, and I went home and snuck up into bed. The next day, during my first period school class, 2 police officers stepped into the room and asked for me by name. I was taken to the same juvenile detention center and spent a second week there. But this second time was different. For one thing, my room had a toilet in it and not just a hole in the floor. And I was there for my 16th birthday. My only present was a piece of cherry pie my parents brought me on a visit, and Mom cried. I remember standing at the window and looking down on the traffic going back and forth on the highway. And I was thinking how they were free and I wasn't. And how society was like a brick wall. And I was running into it with my head. And I was the only one getting hurt. I made a choice in the detention center that day. I promised myself that I would do 3 things. 1, stop getting into trouble with the law. 2, get my Eagle badge. And 3, go on a mission for my church. I started that day. Between my 16th and 18th years, I earned all the badges but one for my Eagle. I couldn't swim a full mile. I tried several times, but I just couldn't do it. And it was a necessary badge then. It isn't now, but I have 2 sons who did get their Eagle, and I'm proud of them. I did achieve the other 2 goals. That time in the detention center and the love of my parents was a life-changing event that started with a choice I made that day. I turned 16. As I look back on it, I realize there is a scripture that applies to me. Choose you this day whom ye will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:15. Well, that's all today. Thank you for your time listening to my story.